The big question being asked is, did Glenn Maxwell's innings, that blistering, crazy innings of 200 plus, did it save the ODI from dying? Now, several opinions are coming in with me. I have very well-known author Arunabha Sen Gupta, and his latest book, Elephant in the Stadium, is creating waves. He is based in Amsterdam. I thought it's best to get Arun over to basically get a different perspective. Thanks very much for joining us, Arun.
My pleasure.
So I want to basically open this chat with you about his 201 of 128 balls. A lot of adjectives have been used about how whether it was the greatest or not. Inevitable comparison with 175 by Kapil Dev back in time, which very few people saw. But and also that 100 of 40 deliveries, which Sunil Gavaskar described that at his time people would take so many deliveries to score the first run. So that apart, what are your thoughts about this ODI World Cup, and do you really believe that it can help save the ODI format? It can resurrect it?
Yeah, first of all, it was extraordinary innings, no doubt about that. And especially if we look at the last partnership with Pat Cummins, he scored more or less all the runs, or 200 plus partnership. But the thing is, yes, we feel a bit sorry about the Afghan team, and it was extraordinary. But to think that one particular knock would save the one-day internationals totally is a bit of a stretch. It might create a fleeting interest, and World Cup essentially, whenever you come to a World Cup, it automatically generates the interest which we see is lacking in the 4 years in between the World Cups. So there are too many factors out here. I mean, one internationals, if we think about it, they developed right in the 70s, and before that, the domestic like one day cricket, limited overs cricket, Gillette Cup, and this John Players League in England. That was because first class cricket and test cricket was basically very, very slow, very dying, and people wanted something faster. And the new generation after the war was growing up, and they didn't have so much time. And one day cricket developed because of that. And now we have the T20, which essentially fills that gap.
Yeah.
You know, T20 fills that gap, and Test cricket is the format which has been there since a long, long time, from 1877, and there are purists who prefer that one. And Test cricket is also not totally immune to the threat posed by T20, but when one looks at one-day cricket, one really thinks that where does it fit in? Because for the shorter format and for the very short format, for people with less time and a lot of money, we have
Arun,
T20.
you're absolutely right, and sorry for butting in, but to take this chat forward, there are a couple of specifics I want to hit you with. One is that there is this belief that less is more is what is required in ODI reformatting. There are several voices who are saying that, particularly former players, that bring it down to 40 overs. It used to be 60 overs at a point in time. Then it became 50, then it became 40. I mean, they want it to be like that. But first, your reaction on the 40 overs. Then also the fact is that since the 1975, those Prudential Cups, and after that, whatever rolled, there has been a reduction of leisure time. The attention span of people has reduced, and there is this big criticism about the middle overs lull. Do you really believe in all these three?
Yes, attention span definitely. I mean, if we look back, one-day cricket really became very, very popular after India won the Prudential Cup in 1983. And from 1983 to 1987, India played a huge amount of matches, and the Sharjah took off. And those days, we didn't really have too much options. You know, either go to cinema halls and watch some movies, or hang out with friends, or or sit around watching this one-day cricket all day. Now it is more of a give and take. You are equally involved in the social media. You are also a content producer, and this really makes the time available for indulging in such sport a bit less. So that is definitely the amount of time that is necessary for a complete enjoyment of one-day cricket. That is less. Apart from that, the middle over lull, that is to some extent rectified by T20. Previously what used to happen, power plays, people used to go over the top because there were few people outside the circle. And then in the middle overs, they used to milk the runs, ones, twos, and then the game used to meander a bit from the point of view of the spectators. Now, what has happened is because of this T20, the T20 revolution, and every year it has been evolving in such a big way, people back themselves to clear the field, even if there are people on the boundary. So, middle over lull has to a certain extent that has been eradicated. What was your third point again?
My third point, just a sec, was basically you've done the leisure time, the middle overs lull, and the 40 over point. That should be trimmed to 40 overs. Will that solve a problem?
That is really very difficult to predict. I mean, we have at 60 overs, we have at 50 overs. 50 overs has been there for a long time. 40 overs, a lot of the English domestic one-day competition was 40 overs. And that was popular at that time. Now, whether it will make any sense nowadays, it's a bit of a problem, because if you're trying to cut down the time, you already have T20. I mean, what benefit will cutting it down by 10 overs really achieve?
So I've dug out some points about the so-called gimmicks in ODI to make it more riveting, and has that really worked? So I'll just race through them, and you can keep reacting. So the first bunch of gimmicks was the power plays, the fielding restrictions, and the shorter boundaries. And what happened is that it punished bowlers more, and it tended to dictate the way a team was captained. Mark Taylor, in fact, said, "You are virtually told how to captain a 50-over game." Then those playing conditions were applied rather than captains being challenged by offering them more freedom. There could still, and this is another point which I thought was pretty interesting, there could still have been a cap on how many overs a bowler can bowl, but at least allow 2 bowlers per team to have more in the quota. Your thoughts, please?
These are all like experiments, and unless we really see them in action, it's difficult to take a really come up with a point of view. It will be speculation. Some of the bowlers being allowed to bowl more, that sounds interesting, but again, we have to see it once it is like really out in the real world. We have to test it out. As far as field restrictions and like shortening the boundaries and all that, that has really taken its toll. I mean, the bowlers have had a real bad time out of it. We can see the way the economy rate, decent economy rate is a lot different to what it used to be in the 80s or in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Now, this has its bad points, like this has its shortcomings. And I would say it also has some amount of benefits, because whenever everything is against you, the bowlers do come up with new innovations. When there was concrete flat pitches, there was body line. When nothing was going in favor of the bowler, you got reverse swing and so on. So yes, there are a lot of more variations which have come into the game, and bowlers are getting used to it. So yes, there are benefits as well. Maybe they are slightly lopsided in favor of the batsman still, but there will be like some takeaways from here.
Arun, in this ODI World Cup, we've noticed that as the time went on and India started playing their own games, so we had packed stadiums, there was also some kind of veiled criticism that the way the ticketing system was done was all wrong. In fact, the opening match hardly had any people in the stadium in the heat of Ahmedabad. But putting that aside, there have been hundreds from quite a few gentlemen, including the new emerging superstar called Rachin Ravindra, then Mitch Marsh, Virat Kohli, QDK, Stokes, Fakhar Zaman, Ibrahim Zadran, Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul, Devin Conway, Rassie van der Dusen, Warner, among others. So around 3,500s, 34 to 35 tons have been hit so far in this World Cup. So there are two questions I have for you, Arun. One is that is this an India-driven phenomena that because India has done so well, so the crowds are obviously streaming in? And second is that do these hundreds have, I mean, these names have become prominent, and have they added their own glitz and glamour, and can they really push this format forward?
When you talk about hundreds, yes, it depends on the person as well. There is a star power, and whenever you look at the Indian channels, you see some people have the star pull and they are always focused. And yes, based on that, uh, Rachin Ravinder, for example, Rachin Ravinder, he has become very, very popular, and that has something to do with the way he was named and all that. I don't know, but yeah, if that catches on, yes, that will drag people to the grounds definitely. As far as the hundreds are concerned, the 3500s, I think like that also speaks a bit about the way the pitches have been prepared. It's totally skewed in favor of the batsman, which I'm not sure that's too good a thing. Yes, it does appeal to the spectators, 100, somebody raising the bat, and especially if he's a star like Virat Kohli and getting his 49th and maybe his 50th in the next two matches, then yes, it is definitely a pull for the crowd. But again, so many hundreds, it might be a bit detrimental to the game. The third point is that whether this popularity is because of India's doing well. Yes, definitely. You are playing in India. If the home team does well, it will be like more and more popular. I think we'll see full houses for the semi-finals and finals definitely, provided, of course, there is no farcical way the tickets are handed out, which was kind of a criticism in the past. But again, we must understand that India is a huge country with a lot of people, and infrastructure wise, it is a bit difficult to have everything under control. And I see the contrast very, very prominently. Sitting in Netherlands, it's a small country, and it's very easy to manage this sort of logistics. In India, it may be very difficult. So I won't be criticizing them that much in this regard.
Okay. I have a couple of interesting quotes on the format of ODI, and I would like your reaction one after another. Let's begin with Ravi Shastri. He makes a very interesting point, I felt, and he says, I think the time has come for it to become now a 40-over game. Evolve with the times, reduce the format. We should let those leagues happen and then have a World Cup just in between. Very few bilaterals if needed before a World Cup or something of that sort. So he is advocating two things. One is whittle it down to 40. I know you've had your say, but what about this bilateral aspect? He wants very few bilaterals. Is that something to be followed?
Like one-day cricket was essentially built on two things. One is apart from the World Cups, we had these bilaterals between countries, and secondly, we had the three nation or four nation in Sharjah, in Australia, the WSC, the World Series Cup. So I don't know, by leagues he means multi-nation leagues.
Yes.
If multi-nation leagues, that might be a good concept, because people's like once you have the test series, you play a one-day series next to it, the popularity or the interest kind of goes down. So if there are multiple nations in contention, and people get a bit more involved into it, it may be the case. 40-over games, again, as I told you, we already have 20, and 40, I don't know how much it will help. But yeah, I might be proved wrong if things are rolled out. And Ravi Shastri obviously comes with a lot of insight into the game, and I can't question that. So multinational leagues, yes, that is perhaps a thing that we can experiment with, especially given that WSC, the World Series Championships in Australia, that was so popular, the Sharjah tournaments were so popular. So multinational leagues is definitely a thing that can increase the popularity of, but to fit in the calendar with all these franchisee T20 championships going on is a bit of a challenge.
Ravi Ashwin makes another interesting point, and he says that he can barely watch ODI cricket anymore because he feels that the ebbs and flows are missing, and it's just an extended form of T20 cricket. Do you also miss the ebbs and flows?
It's more of like, obviously, Ravi Ashwin has his points, and he is very like direct in this regard. But what I think is that rather than the ebbs and flows missing, the ebbs and flows, the definition of ebbs and flows, that has undergone a change because of this T20 coming in. There the fortunes change so frequently, and it has redesigned our expectations. Yeah. So one particular thing that we need to remember is that we do this differentiation between white ball and red ball, but that to me is a erroneous differentiation, because if you look at the correlation statistically, the teams that do well in Test cricket, they tend to do better in ODI as well. But that sort of correlation is not between Tests and T20s. ODIs were more closer to Test cricket rather than, although it's a limited over format, it's a very counterintuitive thing. But if we do a real statistical study, it does seem that ODIs are linked more to Test cricket. So the nuances of Test cricket, like building an innings, getting into a groove, while bowling, these are more akin to Test cricket. And that way, with the influence of T20, it has become a mix of these two, and I think it is searching for its own identity again.
Okay.
That's why the ebbs and flows, we are missing that.
Okay, I'll come to the last point on the show, which is basically that will ODIs survive beyond 2027? Now, the first point is it doesn't have the quality of tests, which offers a very strong examination of a batsman's technique. It allows a bowler to set up that elaborate trap. There's no such time here. Neither does it have the high octane finishes of a T20 game. And who wants to watch a 9-hour tussle when a 4-hour clash can give you all the thrills with the family? So on these 3 points, Arun, your closing thoughts.
It is really, one has to be very optimistic to think that ODIs will survive. But at the same time, let me tell you that in 1886, and it is not like I'm not making any mistake, in 1886, the first time we heard that Test cricket is dying, and Test cricket has survived till today. So that way, historically, if we look at it from that angle, we can be a bit optimistic. But again, it is a problem, as you said, it is a problem of formats. We have the longer version, we have the shorter version, and for people who prefer the shorter version, and we are essentially, T20 was developed for the people who are professional people who have limited amount of time and they want to have a good time with their families, and after their work they come and watch the match and can go back having a good time. Everything is offered in that 3-hour package or 4-hour package. And yes, so to really get that same amount of interest in or appeal from one-day internationals, one has to have a World Cup. As we see, the World Cup is the only way that this amount of appeal or interest, and that also in the more interesting or more high-profile games that we can really think of. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult unless some things that people have been suggesting, like 40-over matches, may work. Leagues like multi-nation leagues may work if that can somehow inject a bit of impetus into the system. Then it may survive. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult. And also, the calendar is really, really tough to squeeze in any sort of uh, space for one-day internationals.
Right, Arun, thank you very much for your time and for your thoughts. It was a very fresh perspective coming from you, and the viewers would be tuning in and watching this show, so they would know that from you, you've given some kind of warning that the ODI cricket is in danger, might be in danger of extinction. The World Cup can save it up to a point, but there is a lot that still needs to be done. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.